You find yourself standing at the edge of the training grounds, the crisp morning air wrapping around you like a cloak. The castle behind you hums with the usual bustle, the clang of swords, the steady thrum of armoured footsteps, the sharp commands barked by instructors. But today, unlike the countless days before, your heart beats with a different rhythm. It questions everything you thought you knew about being a knight. You wonder if you're truly cut out for this life, this path defined by the art of war. What if the calling of knighthood does not align with the call that stirs quietly within you? What if your hands, meant to wield a sword, are meant instead to cradle peace? The world has painted the image of a knight for you since childhood. Brave, unyielding, a figure who steps into the fray without hesitation. A knight's strength is measured by the power of their strike, the sharpness of their blade, and their willingness to face violence head-on. But you feel an unease, a gentle resistance stirring in your soul. The violence seems less like valour and more like a shadow that darkens everything around it. You realise this unease isn't fear, it's something deeper. It's a quiet plea for a different way, one where strength isn't defined by the ability to break bones, but by the courage to uphold kindness. You trace the scuffed patterns of the stone beneath your feet, your mind drifting to the lessons you've been taught. How to hold your sword, how to mount your steed, how to wear your armour. But what about lessons on compassion in battle? What about learning how to heal rather than harm? The knights who trained you never spoke of such things. Their world is black and white, strength or weakness, victory or defeat, loyalty or betrayal. But your heart lives in the shades of grey, where mercy and courage intertwine. As the sun rises higher, casting long shadows, you decide to take a slow, deliberate step forward, away from the training yard and towards a path less travelled. You want to understand what it means to be a knight beyond the sword, beyond the clash of steel. The first step is the hardest because it is not just a physical movement, but a breaking of the mould. You realise that this questioning is not a betrayal of your lineage or your duty, but a courageous act in itself. To doubt is to reflect. To reflect is to seek truth. You think about the stories told around the hearth, tales of knights whose bravery was measured by their ability to conquer foes. But in your quiet moments, you wonder about the untold stories. The knights who chose to shield the weak without striking, who sought peace in the midst of chaos, who walked away from the battlefield with their integrity intact. Perhaps those stories exist, hidden in the cracks of history, waiting for someone like you to bring them to light. The murmurs of the castle fade into the background as you step beyond the familiar walls, feeling the weight of your armour more keenly. It feels heavy, not just physically, but symbolically. It is a reminder of expectations, not just from others, but from yourself. What will your comrades say when you refuse to raise your sword? What will your lord think if you choose words over weapons? The road ahead is uncertain, but you feel a strange calm settling within. You understand that true strength might come not from the clash of swords, but from the courage to be different. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. You envision the path ahead, not paved with battles won by force, but with bridges built through understanding. The journey you're about to embark on is not just about your place in the world of knights. It is about redefining what it means to be brave. Your heart, gentle yet resolute, will be your guide. As the day unfolds, you make a silent vow to seek out this new kind of knighthood, one that refuses to fight but never backs down from standing up for what is right. You will learn to wield patience, compassion, and wisdom as your weapons. And though the world may challenge you, you're ready to show that true honour can be found not in battle, but in the steadfast refusal to harm. With your first steps away from the training grounds, you begin to rewrite the story, not just your own, but the legacy of all who wear the title of knight. Your earliest memories take you back to a time before armour and swords, before the weight of expectations settled on your shoulders. You were a child with wide eyes and a tender heart, growing up in a small village nestled among rolling hills and whispering forests. There, kindness was currency and compassion, a language everyone understood. You remember the warmth of your mother's hands as she tended the garden, the gentle hum of your father's voice as he told stories under the night sky, and the laughter of neighbours who found joy in the simplest moments. In this cradle of gentleness, you began to learn what it meant to care for others. Even then you stood apart, not because you sought to, but because your nature was different. While other children played rough games of mock battles, you preferred quiet moments by the river, watching how the water slipped silently over stones, how the trees bowed without breaking in the wind. You saw strength not in force but in resilience, in the way life bent yet refused to snap. Your hands were not made for violence, they were meant for healing, for nurturing, for offering comfort. At school, your teachers noticed your curiosity about the stories of knights and heroes, but your questions often startled them. Why do knights have to fight, you would ask, tilting your head with innocent confusion. Is there no other way to protect those who cannot protect themselves? The answers were always rehearsed. Honour, duty, bravery, words that felt distant and cold to your young heart. You longed for stories where courage meant kindness, where heroes chose peace over battle. Despite your gentle nature, the world around you was not so forgiving. As you grew, you saw that kindness was often mistaken for weakness. Other children teased you for your reluctance to join their games of rough play, and elders doubted your ability to become a knight worthy of their respect. But you held on to your truth. You knew that strength came in many forms, and that sometimes the greatest battles were fought without a sword. When your village was threatened by harsh winters or scarce harvests, you were the one who volunteered to help the elderly carry firewood, to share food with hungry neighbours, to listen when fears and sorrows filled the night air. These acts did not earn you applause or medals, but they filled you with a quiet pride. In your small acts of kindness, you found a power that could not be measured by armour or weapons. Your parents, proud but concerned, watched your gentle spirit with mixed emotions. They dreamed of you wearing the shining armour of a knight, defending your homeland with valour. Yet they also saw the compassion that defined you, and hoped it would not be extinguished by the harsh realities ahead. "The world will ask much of you," your father said once, his voice heavy with worry. "But never lose who you are inside. That is your true strength." These words became a beacon, a guiding light through the uncertain path before you. You recall a moment from your childhood that stayed with you, when a stray dog limped into the village, injured and afraid. While others shied away, you knelt beside the creature, offering gentle words and steady hands. You tended its wounds with herbs learned from your grandmother, and slowly the dog's trust grew. In that simple act, you understood something profound. Healing requires patience and love, not force. That day you felt a kinship with all living things, a desire to protect without causing harm. As you grew taller and your frame stronger, you were drawn inexorably toward the life of a knight. It was a calling echoed in the songs sung by bards, in the tales whispered by elders around the fire. But even as your training began, you never lost sight of your gentle heart. The dreams you held were not of glory through conquest, but of a world where peace was possible, where knights were not just warriors but guardians of hope. You carry these childhood dreams with you now, as your armour is fitted and your sword hangs at your side. They remind you that beneath the steel and the title, there is a soul that yearns to rewrite what it means to be brave. The world may expect you to fight, to prove yourself in battle, but you hold fast to a different truth, that true courage is the strength to be gentle in a harsh world. As you prepare for the challenges ahead, you feel the weight of your past and the promise of your future entwined. The gentle heart within you is not a weakness to be hidden, but a wellspring of strength to be embraced. And so, you step forward, not as the knight the world expects, but as the knight you were always meant to be. You awaken before dawn to the steady patter of raindrops against the canopy of your tent, each drop a percussion that stirs a familiar resolve in your chest. Today begins the rigorous training that every knight in formation endures. Yet you carry with you an ambition that diverges from the norm, to master the art of peace alongside the art of war. You rise on stiff limbs, leaving behind the warmth of your bedroll, and slip into damp clothes. Your armour awaits in perfect silence, its metal plates reflecting the pale light of pre-dawn. As you fasten each strap, you breathe in deeply, steeling yourself for hours of drills. But in your mind, you carry a question. Can discipline serve gentleness as much as it serves force? You step onto the muddy field, toes sinking into the earth that's been pounded by countless boots. Around you, fellow squires practice sword strikes, shield blocks, and mounted lances, the raw choreography of battle. Their shouts punctuate the air, their movements sharp and precise. You lift your sword for the first exercise, basic strikes against a wooden post. Your instructor, a grizzled knight whose battle scars map decades of conflict, watches you without expression. You swing, and the blade bites into the grain with a ringing clang. You repeat the motion over and over until your arms burn. But the weight of the steel feels alien against your spirit. It humbles you rather than empowers you. You wonder if mastery of the blade is truly the measure of your worth. When the instructor calls for shield drills, the world shifts. You grasp the polished tower shield, its surface smooth under your palm, and lock your feet into a defensive stance. You exchange blows with a partner, each strike intended to test your guard, to breach your defenses. Every impact jars your shoulder, but you hold firm. You feel the power that flows through disciplined muscle, the unspoken trust between two aspiring knights sparring under careful watch. Yet with each clash, you remind yourself of your greater purpose, not to crush your opponent, but to learn restraint and protection. As sweat beads your brow, you feel the paradox of seeking strength through yielding. Next, you mount your horse for equestrian training. The mare, a proud bay named Aravel, snorts softly as you approach, recognizing you from yesterday's ride. You settle into the saddle, letting the rigid courtesy of knightly posture align your spine. The instructor orders a charge down the lane. You spur Aravel forward, the wind whipping your cloak behind you. You lower your lance and aim for the ring suspended between two posts. The familiar thrill of the gallop pulses through your veins. But instead of steering for a decisive strike, you guide your lance to nudge the ring gently, practicing precision rather than force. When the ring falls, cheers ring out. You realize that skillful control can be more impressive than overwhelming power. By midday, fatigue has settled into your bones. You strip off your armor at the water trough and rinse the mud from your legs. Your hands are stained with earth and sweat, and you pause to tend to the blisters that testify to your efforts. A stable hand offers you a loaf of coarse bread and a flask of water. You accept gratefully, savouring the simple sustenance. Your fellow trainees discuss tactics, how to flank an enemy, how to shut down a siege engine, how to defend a castle wall. You listen respectfully, storing their words in the library of your mind. But you add another layer to your knowledge. What happens when words, or small compassionate acts, can avert the need for those tactics altogether? In the afternoon, a special exercise awaits you, conflict resolution drills. The instructor gathers squires into pairs and invites them to role-play disputes, to settle tensions over scarce resources or border disagreements without resorting to swords. You step forward eagerly, your heart lifting at the prospect of diplomacy in place of violence. Opposite you stands a youth, whose expression reads impatience and scorn. He brandishes his wooden sword theatrically. You lower your own, and raise your hands in a gesture of peace. "Tell me your concern," you say softly. "How can we find a solution?" At first he scoffs, but as you listen, really listen to his grievances about lost grazing land and hungry families, his posture slackens. When you offer to accompany him to the council to plead his case, his eyes widen with surprise. In that moment, you sense the true potency of empathy. It disarms hostility without a single swing. As dusk approaches, you return to the castle chapel for meditation, another part of your unconventional regimen. Kneeling on the cold stone floor, you close your eyes and turn inward. You recall the lessons of the morning, how steel met wood, how words met anger, how you balance the fervour of the sword with the calm of compassion. You breathe steadily, feeling the rhythm of your heartbeat in your ears. The chapel's stained glass windows filter the last light into shifting colours on the wall, and you allow those hues to paint vivid images in your mind. Bridges spanning chasms, hands clasped in reconciliation. Fields once contested now open to all. You commit those images to memory, framing them as the blueprint for the kind of knight you intend to become. Night falls, and you join your comrades for a meagre supper of stew and bread. The common room buzzes with tales of the day's triumphs, successful manoeuvres, near misses, the thrill of a well-placed blade. When your turn comes to speak, you share instead the outcome of your mediation drill, how patience and understanding ease tensions more effectively than force. Some listen in respectful silence, others scoff, muttering that words won't stop an arrow. You meet their doubts with quiet confidence, recalling your father's advice. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act in spite of it. To stand for peace in a world set on war requires a bravery as formidable as any charge. Later, as you return to your tent under a cloak of stars, you unlace your boots and peel away the day's grime. Each scuff tells a story. The post that resisted your first swing, the shield that tested your resolve, the mare that carried you true. You lay your sword beside your cot and reach instead for a leather-bound journal. With a charcoal stick you scribble reflections, questions, doubts, small victories. This record becomes your companion, a testament to the path you're forging. It reminds you that mastery is not a single moment of glory, but an unfolding journey of intention and integrity. Before sleep claims you, you whisper a vow to yourself. May my strength always serve compassion. May my resolve never break the hope in others. You fold your hands over your chest and feel the echo of your heartbeat, steady as drum beats calling you onward. In the silence of your tent, you understand that rigorous training is not a contradiction to your gentle mission, but its foundation. Discipline and empathy can intertwine, forging a kind of knight whose weapon is conviction and whose shield is understanding. And so, as the rain's lullaby drifts you into sleep, you dream of the day when the world will learn that the most profound victories are won not by vanquishing enemies, but by conquering the need for enmity itself. You wake before dawn to the distant echo of horns, an urgent call that ripples through the camp like a living thing. The usual calm that accompanies your morning meditations has been shattered by the drumbeat of real conflict. You step out of your tent into a world transformed. Tents are taken down in hurried rows, pack animals bray anxiously, and commanders bark orders with grim precision. The air tastes of fear and steel. You steady yourself with a breath, fingers brushing the hilt of your sword as you shoulder your shield. This is your first true battle, the moment when theory yields to the chaos of war. By the time you reach the outskirts of the enemy's frontier village, the sun has risen high enough to reveal banners fluttering in a cold wind. Across the field, the other side, an opposing host of armoured soldiers shifts into formation, their spears and pikes glinting. Dust swirls around them like restless spirits. Anticipation hangs heavy, suffocating. Your heart hammers in your chest, not with excitement, but with a deep-set aversion. Every fibre of your being recoils from this spectacle of impending violence. Yet here you stand, a knight in training entrusted with a role in this clash. The tension coils within you, like a spring ready to snap. The command to advance cuts through the murmurs. You march forward alongside your brethren, each footstep pounding the ground in unison. The open field stretches before you, a canvas for carnage. Behind you, your banner, its stag emblem proud and unbowed, ripples in the wind. You swallow hard, remembering your father's words. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act in spite of it. You steel yourself, not with the lust for battle, but with resolve to face what must be faced. As the lines converge, the hollow drone of shields colliding and metal clashing swells. Your breastplate vibrates with the impact, each strike reverberating through your bones. You lift your shield to meet an enemy soldier's axe, the force driving you back a step. The world narrows to the tension between you, two warriors locked in an impersonal contest. You feel the edge of your own sword bite into the air, but you cannot bring yourself to deliver a crushing blow. Instead, you parry, deflect, protect. Each motion is deliberate. You waste no movement on aggression. You guide your opponent's momentum aside, diverting his strike rather than matching its brutality. His blade scrapes your shield, sending a tremor through your arm. Around you, the battlefield is an orchestra of chaos. Spears pierce the earth. Horses scream as they charge. Soldiers cry out with the pain of steel cutting flesh. You lock eyes with a young recruit, barely more than a boy. his face streaked with sweat and terror. His grip falters. He staggers back, his sword falling from numb fingers. You lunge forward instinctively, catching him by the forearm and guiding him behind your shield. A blade whistles past where his head had been a heartbeat ago. He gasps, eyes wide, and you clasp his shoulder, whispering, "Stand firm." In that moment, you realize that your desire to preserve life rather than snuff it out gives you a clarity of purpose in the maelstrom. A surge of cavalry from your left flank crashes into the enemy's lines, horses rearing, lances thrusting. You pivot, your lance still affixed to your saddle, and drive Aravel toward the fray. The mare's hooves thunder against the earth, and adrenaline floods your veins. You see a gap where the enemy's formation buckles. You tighten your grip and lower your lance. But instead of aiming for bones, you make for the standard-bearer's gauntlet. You thrust hard enough to jostle him from his position, shattering his grip on the banner without delivering a mortal blow. The standard clatters to the ground, and your comrades rally around the fallen emblem. Victory blooms in that moment, not through slaughter, but by undermining the enemy's unity. Yet as the tide turns, blood seeps through the grass. Dark stains spread where soldiers lie wounded or broken. The acrid stench of smoke drifts from torches set to burn destroyed wagons. Each flicker of flame illuminates the horror of war's aftermath. You maneuver through splintered spears and abandoned helms, searching for downed comrades. You find the stable hand who once offered you bread, face pale, arm crushed beneath a fallen horse. You drop to one knee beside him, shield thrown aside like an afterthought, and lift the horse's flank enough to slip his body out. You press your cloak over the wound, improvising a tourniquet with a strip of linen. His breathing is ragged, but he lives. You grasp his hand and murmur, "Help is coming." You hold him steady until a battlefield surgeon arrives. A distant instinct urges you to continue fighting, to push forward with the others and press your advantage. But an internal voice, gentle yet insistent, counsels you to remain here, tending to those broken in the very chaos you helped create. You choose the latter, realizing that mercy must wreathe every action, even in victory. You guide the surgeon to other wounded men and women, pointing out where shouts of pain still echo. Your own training in herbal poultices, gleaned from childhood lessons beside the river, proves invaluable. You tie splints, apply salves, and encourage the injured, never ceasing in your determination to heal. As the sun begins its descent, the clash dwindles. The enemy retreats in disarray, their forces fractured. Your commanders sound the recall horn, and the battlefield falls silent, save for the laboured breaths of the wounded. You sit against a splintered shield, exhaustion weighting your limbs. The field around you is a tapestry of grief and relief. Soldiers helping soldiers, enemies left unattended, horses grazing where once they charged in rage. You survey the scene and feel a swell of conflicting emotions. Pride in the victory earned, sorrow for the lives marked by violence, and a strange exhilaration that comes from standing true to your convictions. Your fellow knights gather around, praising the day's success. They speak of honour won in battle, of shields upheld and swords brandished. When they ask where you stood in the fray, you describe your actions without embellishment. How you deflected blows, how you unhorsed the standard bearer without killing him, how you tended the wounded while the fighting raged. Some nod in respect, others exchange puzzled glances, unable to reconcile your gentleness with the brutality of the field. But your commander, a grizzled veteran whose approval you hold in high regard, claps you on the back, his armour rattling. "You did well," he says simply. "You were a shield to many today." You lower your gaze, unsure whether to feel honoured or ashamed. You recall the litany of doubts that once plagued your heart, fears that gentleness would render you useless, that mercy would invite defeat. Yet here you are, tested by the crucible of war, and you stand unbroken. The wounds you carry, both physical and spiritual, are a testament to both your strength and your compassion. Night has fallen by the time you make your way back to camp. Lanterns bob through the darkness as you pass piles of equipment and the makeshift field hospital. You smell the mingled scents of disinfectant and sweat. You lay your armour aside and change into a simple tunic. Your limbs ache, and your hands tremble from adrenaline's slow ebb. You sit by the dying embers of a cooking fire, watching as medics sort the wounded and stretcher bearers prepare to depart for the rear. You pull your journal from within your cloak and set quill to parchment. You write of the day's trials, of the clash of steel, the crack of bone, the victory won without bloodlust. You record the names of those you saved, the lessons rediscovered, that strength tempered by mercy carves a path through violence, that courage can manifest in a touch rather than a strike. You reflect on your instinct to avoid the sword's edge, and the necessity that sometimes compel the blade into service. You write of balance, of battle as crucible and compassion as healing balm. As sleep beckons, you close your journal and fold your hands in prayer, offering thanks for your survival, for the lives spared by your interventions, and for the clarity that emerges from the furnace of conflict. You drift into dreams haunted by swords, yet soothed by the faces of those you aided. In those dreams, the battlefield transforms, jagged lines of combat soften into healing circles, and the wounds of war close beneath your gentle care. You awaken at dawn with the echoes of that vision ringing in your ears, an affirmation that your path, though fraught with blood and sorrow, will always honour the gentle heart beneath the knight's helm. You awake before dawn with the weight of yesterday's battle still pressing on your chest, not from armour, but from the expectations that now cloak you more tightly than any chainmail. Word of your actions has spread through the ranks and beyond. You who refused to kill the enemy's standard-bearer, you who stayed behind the lines to heal rather than press the advantage. Some herald you as a saint, others whisper that your mercy nearly cost lives. You rise from your cot in the cold, damp tent, every muscle aching with fatigue, and every thought tangled in doubt. What does the world expect of you now? A hero of compassion or a knight unfit for war? Your tent mates, squires and low-born recruits stir around you. One cracks a joke about sleeping on the soft ground of mercy, eliciting a few half-hearted chuckles. You offer a small smile in return, but inside your mind races. You fasten your gamson and belt your sword ever so carefully, mindful of its presence as both symbol and burden. You step outside into the morning chill, where the camp is already alive with activity. Stallions neigh, armour-bearers polish breastplates, cooks prepare oatcakes over smouldering coals. Yet beneath the surface, bustle is an undercurrent of tension. Whispers follow your steps, carrying praise and derision in equal measure. You make your way to the commander's tent, summoned by a messenger at first light. The path winds past rows of tents, each bearing the scars of battle, a torn banner here, a splintered pike there. You recall how yesterday you helped mend flesh and spirit among these same tents. Now you find yourself threading through the very tents you comforted, feeling both honour and unease at the glances cast your way. When you reach the commander's flaps, you pause, gathering courage before slipping inside. Inside, the commander stands beside a crude map table, surrounded by officers whose faces are grave. The flickering lantern light throws their silhouettes into sharp relief against the map's parchment plains and inked rivers. The commander, a tall, broad-shouldered man whose steel-grey hair and scarred cheek tell of decades in service, turns to face you. His gaze is steady, analytical, as if weighing your soul on scales you cannot see. "Knight," he says, though you're not yet a full-fledged knight by title. "You have both impressed and perplexed us." His voice is measured, devoid of judgment, yet you feel its weight. Your actions in yesterday's fray were unconventional. You meet his eyes and nod, bracing for what comes next. He gestures to the map. "Our scouts report increased enemy activity along the northern pass. Supplies are running thin in the next village. I need officers who will follow orders without hesitation." He pauses, letting the significance of his words settle between you. "Can I rely on you to do whatever is necessary?" Your heart tightens. Do whatever is necessary. The phrase echoes your deepest conflict. Is mercy ever necessary if it appeases your conscience but risks another's safety? You swallow, steady your voice and say, "I will follow your orders, sir, but I must understand the purpose behind them." You watch as a flicker of surprise crosses the commander's face, surprise that you would question rather than simply obey. He inclines his head. "Very well. We march at first light tomorrow. Our objective is to secure the pass and escort the supply wagons. Enemy skirmishers have harassed travellers and stolen provisions. We cannot allow that to continue. The road must be safe for our people." His expression softens slightly. "Your talents for diplomacy and aid will be valuable. once the route is secure. He taps the map where a narrow path threads through jagged mountains. Your company will accompany the guards, keep the wagons moving, protect the innocent. He meets your gaze again. But if the enemy stands in our way, we will fight. You nod again, though your mind swirls. Protect the innocent. Secure the pass. Fight if necessary. The burden of these expectations feels like loam piled upon your shoulders, a fertile ground for growth or a stifling weight that stunts your spirit. You bow and depart, steps brisk but thoughts tangled. Outside, you find a quiet moment beside a supply cart, its wheels sunk in mud. You run your hand across the coarse wood, grounding yourself. You think of the villagers waiting beyond the pass, families with children too young to grasp the politics of war, farmers who need their grain. To them, the pass is the lifeline to food and safety. If you can help ensure the wagons pass unmolested, you will be serving your true purpose. Yet you cannot pretend violence holds no sting, nor can you ignore that sometimes the sword is needed to clear the way for peace. Your squire, a timid youth named Rowan, approaches carrying your shield. He glances at you with admiration and anxiety. "Sir," he says softly, "the men are talking again. They say you refused the standard bearer's death blow out of mercy. They're not sure what to make of it." You pat him on the shoulder, sensing the weight of his concern. "I understand. They will learn. For now, let them see the results of mercy as clearly as they see the scars of battle." Rowan nods, his eyes brightening with loyalty. You stride toward the armory to inspect weapons and ensure each wagon is stocked with the minimal defense gear needed, mostly to deter bandits, not to wage war. Your presence among the armaments feels paradoxical. Your hands, accustomed to tying tourniquets, now handle crossbow bolts and pouches of gunpowder. Yet you remind yourself that tools, like steel itself, are neutral. It is purpose that gives them meaning. Midday sun strikes the canvas of your tent as you convene with the wagon masters. Their lined faces speak of long journeys and constant vigilance. They lay out their route, the villages they will pass, and the spots prone to skirmishes. You listen intently, asking questions about the needs of each community, the times they travel, and the best ways to avoid trouble. When one master mentions the reputation of a notorious bandit lord, you propose sending emissaries ahead to negotiate safe passage, rather than escorting wagons with a show of force. The masters frown at first. Years of experience tell them that bandits respect only the crack of a whip. But you point out that diplomacy can yield loyalty stronger than fear, and local lords might guarantee the wagon's safety if approached as allies. Your suggestion sparks debate. Some officers scoff, others consider with cautious interest. The commander's words echo in your mind. Follow orders, protect the innocent, but fight if necessary. You resolve that negotiation counts as securing the route, as long as it does not endanger the wagons. You volunteer to lead the envoy, drafting letters of safe conduct to be delivered at the bandits' projected camp. You will ride lightly, escorted by a small contingent of guards who will know to step back if talks succeed. If the bandits refuse, you will retreat and warn the convoy to reinforce their defences. As you finalise the plan, you pause to reflect on the burden of these expectations. You're not a diplomat by training, nor a commander by rank, yet here you stand, tasked with preserving peace and ready to wield violence if all else fails. Your childhood questions about the knightly code surface. Is the measure of a knight's worth the lives saved or the battles won? You remind yourself that the two are not mutually exclusive. A knight can break a sword to protect a child, then mend a wound to save the child's parent. When you present the plan to the commander, he listens intently. His stern visage masks the rumble of approval in his mind. He nods at your proposals, then leans forward to tap the map where the bandits' camp is rumoured. "Proceed with caution," he says. "Be the shield and the voice of peace. But if talks fail and lives hang in the balance, deliver a message they cannot ignore." He taps the map again. "Understood." You meet his gaze, feeling the gravity of his command. "Understood," you reply with conviction. Leaving the tent, you exhale a long breath, feeling both lighter and heavier at once. Lighter for having measured your course by compassion, heavier for the responsibility it entails. You look toward the horizon, where the northern pass looms like a dark gateway. The burden of expectations will trail you like a shadow, but so will the promise of a different way. You mount your steed, Rowan at your side, letters secured in a satchel. The guards fall in formation around you, waiting for the word. As you spur your horse forward, the camp behind you fades into rows of tents and busy figures. Ahead lies the unknown, the bandits' lair, the path to the pass, and the fate of the wagons that depend on you. The expectations pressed upon you, they will either shape you into the knight you fear you cannot be, or they will prove that gentleness can bear the weight of the world. With each hoofbeat you choose to believe in the latter. The dawn finds you on the outskirts of a small stronghold, its ramparts crowned by fluttering pennants that proclaim the Lord's dominion. Today, you stand before a congress of nobles and captains summoned by Lord Martell, a ruler renowned for his rigid code of honour and unbending belief in the sword. He has issued a challenge. Any knight who claims the title must demonstrate their worth. The task is clear: settle a long-standing dispute between two rival baronies without shedding blood. Failure, he warns, will brand you as unworthy of knighthood, and you will be dismissed from his service. Your heart pounds with apprehension and possibility. This is the moment you have longed for, the chance to prove that your gentleness is not weakness, that your weapon is understanding. You step forward into the courtyard where torches line the walls, their flames flickering against the pale stone. Around you, armoured figures lean on swords and exchange sceptical glances. Some whisper that this challenge is a mockery, that Lord Martell intends to expose you as a fraud. You draw a deep breath, feeling the weight of every doubt pressing in from all sides. And yet, beneath that pressure, a spark of calm ignites. You remember the lessons of your training, that true courage is measured not by the roar of steel, but by the quiet certainty of purpose. Today, you will call upon every ounce of that certainty. Lord Martell stands on a raised dais, his cloak draped like a banner of iron. His expression is stern as he addresses the assembly. These two baronies have quarrelled for generations, he intones. Border skirmishes, raids on villages, theft of livestock. Count Aldrich and Lady Roswen have failed to find peace. Now, I offer one last chance, a peaceful resolution. Knight, will you undertake this task without drawing your sword? His gaze fixes on you, challenging you to answer. You incline your head, steadying your voice. I will, my lord. A murmur runs through the crowd, some in disbelief, others in curiosity. You follow Martell's gesture toward two gates at the far end of the courtyard. Beyond the left gate lies Baron Aldrich's manor, and the right gate leads to Lady Roswen's fortress. Between them stretches a disputed border, deserted fields trampled by conflicting claims. Your task? To broker an accord acceptable to both, reconciling stolen toll revenues and grazing rights, and you must return by nightfall with the signatures of both parties. As you cross the courtyard, your squire Rowan falls into step behind you, eyes wide with admiration. Sir, he whispers, they say no one has succeeded at this in decades. You pat his shoulder. Then let us be the first. You offer him a brief smile, then steel yourself for the work ahead. If you fail, your reputation and purpose will both lie in ruins. But if you succeed, you will pave the way for other knights to wield mercy in place of the blade. At Baron Aldrich's manor you are met by grim-faced guards who scrutinise your unbloodied hands and the absence of heralded arms. They lead you through an arched corridor into a great hall where Aldrich sits behind a long wooden table. He's a burly man with a bristling beard and eyes like chipped flint. He rises as you enter, sword rising onto a rack beside him, an unspoken reminder of his readiness for violence. Knight, Aldrich grunts. You know why I'm upset. Lady Roswen's men stole my grazing cattle again. My people go hungry. I demand restitution. Or blood. His knuckles grip the table's edge until his nails blanch. You see in his posture the ferocity of a wounded bear. Yet beneath that, perhaps a fear. Fear of loss, of poverty, of injustice. You choose your words with care. Baron Aldrich, I understand your anger. Your fields feed your people, and each stolen beast is a blow to their survival. But blood will not reclaim what is lost, and violence may only amplify the suffering. You let your gaze rest on him, inviting him to object. He snorts, but you continue. Tell me what you need to feel secure that this will not happen again." Aldrich's shoulders sag as he exhales. "Security? I need a border patrol, armed men patrolling my fields, and I need double the toll fees collected at Roswyn's gate to cover my losses." He punctuates each demand with a hammering fist on the tabletop. You nod, acknowledging his pain. "Your request is reasonable. You ask protection and compensation." You pause. "Now, what can you offer in return? What would ease Lady Roswyn's concern so that she does not view your patrols as an invasion?" Aldrich's jaw works. Finally he mutters, "Her people say my men raid her grain stores. If I could guarantee my men will only patrol within the agreed boundary, and if she pays me in kind when her lands produce more." You tuck away each term in your mind, then propose a solution. "We can establish a joint patrol comprised of your men and hers, overseen by a neutral steward. Toll revenues will be apportioned by a shared ledger, half to you, half to Lady Roswyn. When harvest yields are greater in her lands, she will remit a proportional share to you." You lean forward. "This system requires transparency and accountability. Would you agree to appoint neutral observers for each quarter term to audit the ledger?" Aldrich's gaze shifts as he considers the fairness of that plan. He grunts but nods. "With observers, yes." You rise. "Then we have the framework. I will take this to Lady Roswyn for her assent." He offers no warmth, but his stiff nod signals acceptance. You and Rowan ride swiftly to Lady Roswyn's fortress, a perched citadel of white stone and ivy. At the gate, you are greeted by her captain of the guard, a tall, lean woman who eyes you like a hawk. Inside, Roswyn awaits you in her private chambers, a lithe figure in a gown of deep crimson, her dark hair braided around a slender neck. She regards you with an expression of cautious intelligence. "Knight," she says, voice smooth as silk but with the edge of steel. "You broke a peace between men who see swords as the answer. Why should I trust you?" You meet her gaze steadily. "Because swords are not the answer to the suffering this dispute causes. Loss of livestock, ruined families, wasted toil. I believe you wish to protect your people by ensuring fair use of the land. You lay out the same proposal, emphasizing shared patrols, equitable tolls and quarterly audits." As you speak, Roswyn's fingers tap a carved armrest, her brow furrowing in thought. "When you finish," she leans back, "a joint patrol is forthright, but who will supply the wagons for the observers? And what guarantee do I have that Aldrich will not bribe them?" Her questions probe at your plan's vulnerabilities. You smile inwardly, pleased by her discernment. "We will alternate hosting duties. Each quarter, one barony provides transport, the other hospitality. Observers will be drawn from neutral townsfolk, cloistered scribes, merchants with no stake in these lands. Their reputation for integrity is known across the realm." Roswyn's eyes narrow as she weighs your words. You offer her a moment of silence, recognizing that decisions made in haste breed regret. At length she nods. "Very well. I will consent, provided the names of the observers are submitted for my approval, and I require that any patrol entering my fields announce themselves in advance." You agree readily, appreciating that respect and consent undergird this accord. With Roswyn's signature following Aldrich's, you hold the parchments aloft in the central hall, presenting them to the assembly gathered beneath Lord Martell's watchful gaze. Murmurs rise as both baronies accept the terms. Martell steps forward, his stern countenance softening just enough to betray approval. "You have succeeded where many failed," he declares. "You have settled a feud without raising a sword. Rise, knight. Your worth has been proven." Relief and exhilaration surge through you as the crowd erupts in cheers, some hesitant, others genuine. You bow deeply to Lord Martell, then turn to face Aldrich and Roswyn alike. Their dignified nods convey a newfound respect. In that moment you understand that knighthood transcends the clash of steel, that your insistence on peace has ensured not only security, but the preservation of life and community. As the sun climbs overhead, you walk through the courtyard lined with onlookers offering congratulations. Rowan trails behind, grinning as he catches your eye. You feel the solid press of your armour on your shoulders, but beneath it something lighter, the knowledge that you have proven your worth, not by the wounds you inflicted, but by the bonds you forged, and in forging those bonds you have reshaped the meaning of victory itself. Dawn's light filters through the dense canopy of birch and oak as you emerge onto the winding path that leads to Oak Haven. the village nestled in the green fold of the valley. Word reached the camp only hours ago. A plague, or so the villagers fear, has struck the livestock, turning cattle listless and sheep's wool matted with sickness. Supplies dwindle and merchants have refused to traverse the muddy road, citing bandit ambushes and contagion. The villagers, already lean from last season's scant harvest, face the brink of starvation. When you heard their plight, you set aside your plans for the pass and rode north at full gallop, determined that your gentle mission would reach this suffering community. As you crest the final hill, Oakhaven's thatched roofs come into view, smoke rising in ragged spirals from stone chimneys. Fields that once gleamed with barley now lie fallow, dotted with bleached bones of animals that could not be saved. A creeping silence casts the village in a hush, broken only by the distant clank of a shepherd's staff against the empty stall. You slow your mount, Rowan at your side, and let your gaze sweep over faces pressed against wooden shutters. In spite of the badges you wear, you feel no distance between you and them. You share their fear and resolve to help. You dismount in the village square where a simple well stands. A handful of villagers, gaunt men and women, their clothing patched and worn, gather uncertainly around you. A tremor of hope flits through their eyes as they recognize the stag-emblazoned banner you bore to broker peace. You remove your helm, bowing your head to meet them at eye level. "I have come to help," you say, voice calm but carrying the weight of promise. "Tell me what has befallen your herds." An elderly shepherd named Toran steps forward, leaning heavily on a gnarled staff. His eyes are clouded with sorrow. "They grow weak, my lord," he rasps, voice cracking. "Stomachs swollen, hooves sloughing. We know not what curse this is. Our best herbs have failed, and the next full moon approaches. If the sickness remains, we will have no beast to plough the fields, no milk for the children." His gaze drifts to the horizon, mouth set in a grim line. "We've nowhere else to turn." You listen, feeling the knot of urgency tighten in your chest. This is no matter of diplomacy or patrols, but of life's raw fragility. Yet your purpose has always been to bridge the divide between strength and compassion, and here, strength must take the form of action unbound by sword or scroll. You glance at Rowan, whose face reflects determination tempered by worry. Together, you will confront this peril. First, you convene a meeting in the chapel that overlooks the village green. Banners have been stripped from the walls. In their place hang crude sketches of sick animals, drawn by anxious villagers. You clear a wooden table and seat yourself at its head, gesturing for Toran and other elders to take the benches. "We must diagnose before we treat," you say, producing a small satchel of remedies and parchment. "Tell me everything you have observed. When did the symptoms begin? What have you fed the beasts? Who else has seen this ailment?" As they speak, you scribble notes, your mind weaving patterns among symptoms and possible causes. You learn that the cattle first fell ill beneath a low-lying marsh near the eastern ford, where runoff from a new tannery upstream might have contaminated the water. The sheep, penned on the northern hillsides, graze on grass that has been washed with unnatural froth after recent rains. You nod, sharing your suspicions. It may be poisoning, not plague. We must test the water and forage, and isolate healthy animals immediately. A murmur of relief spreads. Poison, after all, is something you can investigate and remedy. You organise a small team, 2 villagers strong enough to carry water samples, a local healer armed with mortar and pestle, and Rowan, who will assist in record keeping. You borrow a leather-bound codex from the chapel to log findings. Before the sun climbs higher, you ride with the team to the marsh near the ford. You approach the murky water with reverence, for even here, life clings among reeds. Using a flask from your satchel, you scoop samples of water and mud, labelling each carefully. Rowan inscribes the time, date and location. You instruct the healer to note odours, chemical tang, rotting vegetation, and to collect grasses with blackened edges. By midday, you reconvene at the granary, where you set up a rudimentary lab. Bowls for sifting, a brazier for heating, and your own vial of distilled water. The healer crushes herbs, mixed with your supply of activated charcoal and clay, to test for toxins. You run basic tests, colour changes in liquids, the bitter ash from burned grasses. As you work, villagers press around the grain sacks, watching with apprehensive hope. You speak to them gently, explaining each step. The water's acidity indicates a high tannin content, you say, pointing to the quivering solution. These grasses contain metallic residues, likely from the tannery's vats. This poison infiltrates their diet. The healer nods, mixing charcoal poultices to bind the toxins. Next, you instruct the villagers to herd the remaining healthy animals into hastily prepared pens on higher ground. You and Rowan wade into the marsh to place markers along the water's edge, alerting travellers and livestock to avoid the ford until remediation is complete. You confer with the local blacksmith, whose skill with metal you now repurpose. He forges a series of iron collars to hold filter cloth that you will fit onto the village's wellhead. These collars, lined with charcoal and sand, will filter out most sediment and toxins before the water reaches the buckets. By late afternoon, the filter assembly stands by the well, and you pour the first clear water into waiting pails. Villagers taste the new supply with cautious sips, then widen their eyes in relief. Water, once the source of poison, now flows purified. Children giggle as they splash small amounts into their mouths. Elders weep quietly, pressing hands to their foreheads in gratitude. You catch Tauren's eye across the well, and he offers you a trembling nod of thanks. In that moment, you feel the purest form of victory. But your work is not done. You prepare poultices with the charcoal clay mixture to treat the sick animals, instructing the healer on application and dosage. Rowan and a handful of farmers carry the packs to the barns where animals shiver in pens. You enter the stalls, laying gentle hands on flanks and muzzles, whispering calm words as you apply the healing pastes. The low moans of pain mingle with your soft reassurances, and you marvel at your dual role, knight and healer, warrior and caregiver entwined. As dusk descends, the villagers gather once more in the square, torches lighting flickering halos around their faces. They offer you blankets, fresh-baked loaves, and skins of goat's milk. You accept with humility, seating yourself among them. Your stained cloak and soiled gambeson speak of long hours, but your eyes shine with resolve fulfilled. A hush falls as a young mother steps forward, her child cradled in her arms. "My son was too weak to stand," she says, voice thick with tears. "But today you helped him greet the rising sun." She places the child's hand, a tiny, desperate grip, into yours. "Thank you." You close your fingers around his, feeling the fragile hope in his pulse. The congregation murmurs in approval. Some speak of sending emissaries to the tannery's lord, demanding accountability. Others pledge to expand the charcoal filter system to neighbouring hamlets. You rise to address them. Your unity is your greatest shield. Continue to work together, share knowledge, and protect this valley. When you see harm, act swiftly. When you face poison, literal or of the heart, seek purification in patience and purpose. You pause, letting the words settle. I came as a knight who refuses to fight, but here I have learned that even in peril, our noblest weapon is our shared compassion. Night deepens, and under a canopy of stars the villagers break into song, ancient melodies of harvest and renewal. You listen, leaning on your staff, Rowan at your side. You realise that your journey is not defined by the cold edge of a blade, but by each hand you hold, each life you touch, each disaster you defy with gentle strength. The village in peril has become a crucible where your ideals prove their power, where a knight's courage manifests not in war, but in saving a single lamb, a mother's child, a community's faith. When you finally retire to a small cottage offered by the grateful villagers, you allow exhaustion to wash over you. You write in your journal by candlelight, "Oakhaven lives because we chose understanding and action over violence. Here, I am not merely a knight, I am a steward of hope." With those words, you close your eyes, your spirit buoyed by the knowledge that true heroism ripples outward, echoing in every grateful heartbeat and every fresh dawn. You rise before dawn once more, the chill of early morning resting on your shoulders like a cautious promise. The road before you stretches pale and mist-shrouded, lined on either side by towering pines, whose needles whisper secrets you cannot yet decipher. Today's journey will carry you beyond the borders of Oakhaven into uncharted territories, where rumours speak of disparate groups who have watched your actions from afar. A brotherhood of herbalist friars in the highlands, a caravan of mercantile traders along the Silver Road, and a clandestine circle of forest dwellers known only as the Verdant Vigil. Each holds influence in their own domain: spiritual, economic, and ecological. Alone, none could sway the course of kingdoms. Together they might forge a network of support for your vision of a knight who wields gentleness as deftly as any sword. You set out with Rowan at your side, your journal strapped to your saddle and your cloak pulled tight against the rising sun. Your first destination is the friary perched atop Windspire Peak, its whitewashed walls glinting like a beacon against the pale dawn. The path is steep and rocky, but Aravel's sure hooves carry you onward. As you ascend, you ponder how you will present yourself to these secluded healers and peacemakers, how you will compel them to join a cause that risks drawing them out of their cloistered safety. You recall your conversations in Oakhaven, the gratitude in the villagers' eyes, the way healing forged bonds stronger than fear. You know that if you can articulate the power of mercy as a force that ripples outward, these allies may lend their strength to your mission. By mid-morning, you crest the final ridge and see the friary's courtyard below, ringed by terraced gardens brimming with medicinal plants: yarrow, comfrey, elderflower. A solitary friar tends the rows, humming a low chant that drifts through the air like a benediction. You dismount and approach, laying your sword across your forearms in the gesture of peace. The friar looks up, curiosity brightening his gentle eyes. "Peace be with you, knight," he intones, voice warm as hearthfire. "Our brothers speak of your deeds among the living. What brings you to our threshold?" You return his greeting, bowing deeply. "I come seeking your counsel and your collaboration. Your skill with herbs and your devotion to peace have saved many lives. I wish to build a fellowship that unites compassion, dialogue, and mercy to protect the innocent and heal the wounded. You speak of the plague in Oakhaven, of the accord you brokered between Aldrich and Roswyn, and of your mission to redefine knighthood." The friar listens, nodding slowly, eyes fixed on yours as if discerning the sincerity of your heart. After a moment's pause, he sets aside his trowel and invites you into the friary's refectory, where simple wooden benches encircle long tables. Over bowls of radish and barley gruel, he introduces you to Brother Corwin and Sister Merida, both healers whose renown extends to distant courts. They exchange glances, then turn back to you. "Your vision is bold," Corwin says thoughtfully, "but isolation weakens even the strongest tree. Unity strengthens the forest as a whole." Merida offers a gentle smile. "We will lend our knowledge of healing and our voices of counsel, but in exchange you must carry our message of non-violence wherever you go, that all who hear it may understand that peace begins in the heart." You accept their terms without hesitation. After all, you have pledged to let your conviction guide you. They provide you with poultices, antidotes, and scrolls detailing pastoral laws for community-led healing networks. You vow to teach these methods to those you meet on your journey. As you depart, each friar presses a small pouch of seeds into your hand: mint for courage, lavender for calm, and marigold to restore hope. "Plant these in each village you aid," Sister Merida advises. "They will serve as living reminders of our alliance." Your next leg takes you down Windspire's southern flanks toward the Silver Road, the famed trade route where caravans laden with silk, salt, and rare spices ply the well-worn path. Here, commerce weaves together distant realms and cultures. If you can secure the support of the merchant caravans, you gain not only material provisions but also the ability to spread your philosophy along every valley and mountain pass. You ride until the morning fades into afternoon and arrive at the caravan's midday encampment, a glittering assemblage of wagons, camels, and traders from half a dozen nations. You approach the caravan master, a tall woman with perpetually sun-kissed cheeks named Safia al-Karim. Her reputation for fairness and swift justice is known from the Golden Dunes to the Sapphire Bay. She eyes your stag-emblazoned cloak and raises an eyebrow. "A knight among merchants? To what do I owe this honour?" you ask, bowing slightly. You outline your cause, that the friars will teach herbal remedies, that peace accords can minimise banditry, and that a network of allied villages will create safer routes for trade. You propose that the caravan affix your pamphlets, written in several tongues, to each wagon's flank, offering guidance on conflict resolution and basic healing to remote settlements. Safia considers your words, lips pursed in thought. Trade caravans thrive on security, she says finally. If you can ensure that my gold-laden wagons traverse the wilds without massacre or looting, you will have earned our support. You recount your plan for the Silver Road, how you will plant seeds of alliance in each village, how you will mediate local disputes before they escalate into robberies, and how the Friar's cures will reduce fear of outbreaks that halt trade. You promise to ride with the first wagon as an envoy of peace. After a moment, she nods curtly. Very well, we will carry your pamphlets, and I will dispatch a guard detail to accompany you across the most perilous stretches. But know this, if your network falters and my goods are lost, the merchants will move on without looking back. You thank Sophia and secure in your satchel a supply of pamphlets, each illustrated with scenes of negotiation and healing, accompanied by brief verses from the Friar's meditations. As you prepare to leave, Sophia's second-in-command hands you a small, intricately carved box. Take this, he says. It contains signet rings bearing the merchant's seal. Show them to any caravan you meet. They will offer you food, rest, and safe passage. You tuck the rings into your pouch, their metal cool against your palm, a token of trust you intend to honour. Your final journey of the day leads you into the lush foothills of the Greenwood, the ancestral realm of the verdant vigil, elusive guardians of the ancient forests. These woodland dwellers live in harmony with nature, tending sacred groves and defending the balance of life against any who would exploit it. Their ways are whispered in myth, shapeshifters, archers with arrows of thistle and yew, druidic sages who commune with ancient trees. Few knights seek them out, and fewer still return with tales of parley. Yet you know their endorsement would galvanize the hearts of those who value the land itself. The path winds narrower and steeper until you come upon a glade ringed by oaks whose trunks are broad enough to hide a man. Here, you dismount, draw your sword, and lay it at the base of an ancient oak as a sign of peace. You step forward, inhaling the scent of moss and pine, and call out in a clear voice, "Guardians of the Greenwood, a knight who refuses to fight seeks your counsel and your kinship. Show yourselves that we may stand together in defence of life." Your voice echoes among the branches, and for a moment only the whisper of leaves answers. Then, soft footsteps on leaf litter, the faint twang of a bowstring, and a figure emerges lithe and silent, a grey cloak blending with the bark. Another appears and another, until a circle of vigilant eyes surrounds you. Their leader steps forward, a tall figure with hair like braided ivy, and eyes the colour of fresh shoots. Her voice is low, melodic, yet carries an undercurrent of authority. Why does a knight come seeking those who shun the sword? You wear armour and bear the tools of war. You meet her gaze steadily, then gesture toward the sword at the oak's roots. I lay down my weapon at your threshold to prove my intent. I seek to forge alliances that shield the innocent, preserve the land, and teach that compassion can be stronger than steel. You speak of the friar's seeds, the merchant's pamphlets, and your vision of a network united by healing, dialogue, and respect. Silence stretches between you, charged, expectant. Finally, the leader inclines her head and signals the bow-bearers to lower their weapons. "We will join your fellowship, provided you honour the sacred balance. In every place you intervene, you must ensure the land itself is healed alongside its people." She reaches into a satchel at her side and withdraws a small branch of silverleaf. "Take this living token of our alliance. Plant it where you have brokered peace, that its roots bind soil and soul together." You press the branch to your heart, feeling its pulsing life, and vow to carry out her condition with unwavering dedication. As twilight falls, you ride back along the woodland path, the 3 threads of your alliance woven firmly into your saddlebag. Friar's seeds, merchant rings, verdant saplings. Rowan hums softly beside you as stars blot out the remaining light. You think of the journey ahead, the villages waiting, the disputes to settle, the fields to heal. You know skepticism will follow you, knights who scoff, lords who doubt, enemies who test your resolve. Yet with each alliance you have forged today, your cause has grown stronger. A fellowship of healers, merchants, and guardians who will stand behind your gentle mission. By nightfall, you reach a clearing where a lone oak stands sentinel. You dismount, kneel in the soft grass, and place each token upon the earth. A pouch of seeds, a merchant's ring, a silver leaf branch. With whispered words of promise, you cover them gently with soil, feeling the soil's cool embrace. May these alliances root in every heart, every hearth, every forest glade, you murmur, and may every hand find the strength to choose compassion. You rise as the moon's pale glow filters through the leaves, and you know that tomorrow, and every day after, your fellowship will carry your vision onward. The web of alliances you have spun will become a shield for the vulnerable, a conduit for peace, and a testament to the power of gentleness. Your journey has taken you far beyond the confines of knighthood as you once understood it. Now, it stretches into a future where every ally you gain strengthens the tapestry of hope you are weaving across the realm. You awaken before dawn, the memory of last night's council with the verdant vigil still vivid in your mind. How the silver leaf branch glinted in torchlight, how the friar's seeds nestled in your satchel, and how the merchant's signet rings lay heavy with promise. But today's challenge demands a different kind of currency: words. You mount Aravel in the mist-shrouded courtyard of a small border keep, where rival factions have bristled at each other for years. Here, brute force has ruled in the past, yet you carry not swords or spears, but the conviction that empathy and reasoning can bring down walls stronger than stone. A procession of soldiers, 24 hardened veterans sworn to opposing lords, stands ready under the grey sky. Their faces are drawn, eyes wary. Each side expects treachery at the first misstep. You dismount, settling your cloak so that the stag upon your breastplate faces both lines equally. Rowan holds your horse's reins, watching with a mixture of awe and anxiety. You inhale deeply, tasting the damp air, then step forward onto the cobblestones, placing yourself between the two ranks as if you were a living bridge. The captain of the North Guard, a grizzled man named Harkon, steps forward and spurs his voice for all to hear. We've come to collect tribute from the Southern Baron, as is our right. On the opposite side, Captain Lysana of the South Guard replies with equal gravitas, "Tribute? You call it tribute, but you call it extortion. We will not pay for your greed." Their words, sharp as blades, cut through the hush, and the soldiers shuffle their feet, hands itching for their hilts. You raise your hands, palms outward, eyes calm. "Captains," you say, voice steady, "the tribute you demand has cost too many lives." You pause to let your words sink in. Baron Nereus in the north fields the coin to fund his wars. Baroness Aurea in the south sacrifices her people's grain to shore up her defences. Neither yields peace, and neither gains security. You let silence stretch, then continue. "I stand here not as a judge, but as a mediator. My purpose is simple, to ask what each of you truly seeks, and to find the path that honours both your needs and your people's lives." Harkon's jaw tightens, and Lysana's brow furrows. You turn first to Harkon, meeting his gaze. "Captain Harkon, you serve a baron who prizes expansion. What does your lord need to feel his strength is respected?" Harkon's eyes soften for the briefest moment before he glances at his men. He fears weakness," he stammers. "He fears that if he does not show force, other lords will swallow him alive. The tribute is a sign of his might." You nod, acknowledging his candour. Strength need not come from fear. It can come from alliances, from shared prosperity. What if your lord's might were measured by the well-being of his neighbours, rather than the gold in his treasury? Before Harkon can respond, you pivot to Lysana. "Captain Lysana, your charge is to safeguard your baroness's lands. What does she need to feel secure?" Lysana's grip tightens on her spear shaft. "Stability. She cannot afford raids at harvest." You incline your head. Stability built on fear is brittle. It cracks under the weight of resentment. But stability born of trust endures. Let us speak of trade rather than tribute. Let the north supply tools to repair your granaries, and the south deliver grain to feed your border garrisons. In exchange, neither side pays in coin, but both gain in stability. A murmur ripples through the ranks. Soldiers glance at one another as if hearing something impossible. You press on, your tone warm yet authoritative. Consider also the words you send beyond this keep. Let them carry messages of cooperation rather than threats. My merchant allies will ensure your caravans are protected, not seized. My friar friends will bring healing if outbreaks occur among your people. My forest guardians will watch your borders and report danger rather than ambush travellers. In return, your armies stand down from tribute collection, and your baronies rise not by plundering one another, but by lifting one another. Harkon steps forward, jaw still clenched. Words are wind, he mutters. They change nothing. You meet his gaze without flinching. Words shape actions. A promise kept outlives a blade unsheathed. If you doubt, let us formalize a covenant. Write the terms with quill and seal it with your baron's rings. Let the words bind you as surely as any oath sworn on the cross. You raise the parchment you carry, blank but for your petition. Sign here. No tribute henceforth, but a council of representatives from north and south to govern the border. They will meet at the keep each season. Their mandates to manage shared resources, to adjudicate disputes, and to prepare joint defences. Should either side break this covenant, both will be subject to the realm's justice. Lysana's spear clatters as she lowers it. She steps to your side and examines the parchment. This council, she says, means our lords would share power. You offer her a nod. Shared power secures peace. When both lords have a voice in decisions, neither feels cheated. Harkon looks across at Lysana, tension coiling in his shoulders. Time seems to stall as they weigh each other's faces. Then, slowly, Lysana unsheathes a dagger, a ceremonial gesture, and uses its blade to sign beneath your words. Harkon watches, then draws his own dagger and signs opposite hers. The parchment flutters in the breeze, no sword required to seal its fate. A collective exhale ripples through the soldiers. The tension drains from their shoulders as they realize that the spectre of conflict has receded. You step back, offering a gentle smile. Let this agreement stand as proof that words, like swords, can defend what matters. Now, I invite you all to break bread together, soldiers side by side, so you may see one another as allies, not enemies. Within moments, camp cooks are summoned, and improvised tables appear. Bread and cheese, bowls of stewed lentils, and flagons of ale are set out. You join Harkon and Lysana at the head table, and as the soldiers begin to eat, you raise a cup. To the council of the border keep you toast, and to a peace forged by our words. The clatter of cups and the warmth of laughter replace the earlier hush of dread. As the celebration unfolds, you slip away to tend other matters. You notice scribes copying the covenant for both barons' archives and for your own records. You watch soldiers from north and south exchange stories of home and hardship, their shared laughter bridging years of enmity. You find Rowan, who beams as he passes out copies of the Verdant Vigil's silver-leaf tokens, each soldier pressing the small branch between their fingers as a reminder of the Forest Guardian's watchful eyes. By afternoon's fading light, the keep's banners fly at half-mast, not in mourning, but in humility. The tribute banner has been lowered permanently, replaced by the double standard of the Border Council. 2 fields, interlaced, symbolizing unity. You mount Aravel once more, Rowan securing your parcels of seeds and pamphlets. Before you depart, both captains fall in step beside you. Harkon grips your shoulder. I did not believe it possible, he admits. Lysana adds, but you have proven that words are weapons of the highest order. You nod, gratitude swelling within you. As you ride away, you reflect on the power of dialogue, how inviting someone to speak their fears can turn a foe into a partner, how offering tangible steps to address needs can transform abstract vows into living practice. You consider how each alliance you have forged, friars, merchants, forest guardians, and now 2 once warring captains, expands the realm of compassion. Your heart swells with the knowledge that your sword will remain sheathed more often than not, its presence a reminder rather than a threat. The road ahead curves into forest dappled with gold. You gaze toward the horizon, envisioning the miles of villages and towns yet to come. You understand that future battles may still demand steel, but you know that the sharpest instrument in your arsenal will always be the right word at the right moment. As the sun dips below the treetops, you ride on, your voice ready to defend peace wherever conflict threatens to break. You set out at first light, the memory of last evening's celebrations still warm on your tongue, the laughter of former enemies, the taste of shared wine, the glow of unity in every torchlit face. Yet as you ride through the dawn mist toward the next waypoint, a small hamlet renowned for its skilled weavers and cooperative spirit, you cannot shake a restless thought. Even the strongest tapestry can unravel at a single loose thread. You press your heels to Aravel's flanks, determined to arrive before midday, and to reinforce the fragile bonds you have woven across this land. By noon, you crest a gentle rise and see the hamlet's straw-roofed cottages nestled in a sunlit clearing. A handful of merchants and travellers dot the dusty road, trading goods and news under a communal elm. You dismount, smoothing your cloak and offering a courteous nod to Rowan, who steadies your saddle. You carry with you 3 tokens of your alliance: the Verdant Vigil's silver-leaf sprig, the Friar's seed pouch, and the merchant's signet ring, symbols to plant, sow, and seal goodwill. You intend to place them at the heart of the village, near the well where children play, and by the loom where the weavers spin wool into cloth that carries your story beyond borders. You are greeted warmly by the hamlet's steward, an elderly woman named Mirielle, whose hands bear the stains of dye yet move with uncanny precision. She leads you to the communal square, where you find villagers gathering around a hastily erected platform of rough-hewn wood. Beneath its beams lies a crude gallows, a sight so incongruous that your breath catches. Beneath the gallows stands a lone figure, a guard from Sophia Al-Karim's caravans, his merchant's ring still on his finger, now turned tarnished by fear and shame. His shoulders slump, his eyes hollow. At his feet kneels another man, one of the neutral observers you tasked with overseeing the joint patrol between Aldrich and Roswin. His robes are torn, and he clutches a ledger to his chest as if it were a shield. Your heart thunders. Betrayal is not a foreign concept. You have seen it in silent betrayals of trust, in the ruthless turn of blade, but never so brazen, never so personal. You step onto the platform, Rowan at your heels, and demand explanation. Mirielle falls silent, and the crowd's murmur fades to a tense hush. The steward's lined face twists with conflicted relief and remorse. "My Lord Knight," she begins, her voice quavering under the midday sun. "I did as you asked. I planted seeds by the well, I mounted the silver-leaf sprig at the loom, and I ensured our merchants carried your pamphlets onward. But when the caravan passed through 2 days ago, bandits ambushed them, masked men who spoke our language. They murdered half the guard and took the merchant's gold. This man," she jerks a thumb at the kneeling observer, "led them to their camp. He stole the ring and the pouch and delivered our people into ruin." A sickening swell of questions rises in you. How could one you entrusted, one you trained in diplomacy and ethics, so utterly abandon his duty? You glance at the kneeling figure, his face streaked with tears and grime. When you meet his gaze, he flinches as if under the blow of a sword. I had no choice," he stammers. "They threatened my family. They said if I did not show them the caravan schedule, they would burn my home and slaughter those I love. I tried to warn you." His voice cracks and he buries his face in his hands. You close your eyes, tasting bile in your throat. The truth of his words resonates with a hollow ache. You too have known how fear can fracture resolve. Yet the damage is done. Merchants lie dead, gold is lost, trade disrupted, and the hamlet's trust, already precarious, teeters on the verge of collapse. The lantern of unity you carried here flickers, its flame threatened by a single gust. You step away from the platform to gather your thoughts, Rowan watching with wide-eyed concern. The villagers press in, some wailing, others glaring at the kneeling man. The steward remains rooted, her gaze shifting between you and her betrayer. You inhale deeply, recalling every lesson you have taught. That empathy must meet accountability, that compassion without boundaries can invite chaos. Yet in this moment, your faith in the mission falters. If someone chosen to uphold peace can unravel it so completely, what guarantee do you have that the next steward, the next observer, the next ally will stand firm? A voice in your mind, the quiet counsel you have nurtured, urges you to steady yourself. You remember your father's words. True strength is proven in the face of betrayal, when you choose whether to build or to break. You turn back to the crowd and raise a hand for silence. When you speak, your voice is calm yet carries the weight of your resolve. This betrayal cuts deep, you say, but it also reveals where our bonds are weakest. We cannot ignore fear, nor can we allow it to dictate our actions. We must reckon with both the man who faltered and the harm that resulted. You step down from the platform and offer your hand to the kneeling observer. He looks up cautiously, suspicion and guilt mingling in his eyes. You help him to his feet. You will answer for your betrayal, you tell him, your tone firm. You will face justice, But you will also have the chance to make amends. Your knowledge of these lands, your service as an observer, can still serve the greater good if you choose to redeem yourself. Relief and shame flash across his features as he nods, tears glistening on his cheeks. Turning to the steward, you say, "Miriel, gather a council of villagers, merchants, and guards. Convene them in 2 hours by that same platform. I will be there to hear your proposals for preventing this from happening again." You gesture to the merchant's ring that still glints on the fallen guard's finger, and the friar's seeds strewn in the dust. Symbols alone cannot hold peace. Systems must support them. We will revise our methods. We will strengthen our communication, secure our schedules, provide safe houses for those under threat, and offer sanctuary to any who fear for their families. We will plant not only seeds of plants, but seeds of security. As you speak, you feel a familiar determination kindle within you. The belief that betrayal, like any wound, can heal under the right care. You will not abandon the mission because of broken threads. Rather, you will weave a stronger tapestry. You mount Aravel and ride a short distance to the old willow by the well, Rowan following. There you plant the silverleaf sprig again, this time encircled by a ring of stones that mark it as a sentinel, a living ward. You sow the friar's seeds in the soft earth at its base and pour a whispered blessing into the soil. Grow true and steadfast. Bear witness that from our failures we learn resilience. When you return to the square, the council has assembled. You stand before them, the weight of your armour a reminder that protection comes in many forms. The steward reads their proposals, staggered caravan schedules, a relay of messengers sworn to secrecy, safe houses in neighbouring villages, funds allocated for hostage relief rather than ransom, and a rotating oversight committee to remove any compromised observer. Each measure acknowledges the reality of fear, addresses the vulnerability it creates, and strengthens the bonds of mutual accountability. You listen, nodding after each point, and then address the crowd. Today we faced a trial not of swords, but of trust. We were wounded by betrayal, but we have chosen not to collapse under its weight. We have chosen to fortify our unity with systems of care and vigilance. You turn to the kneeling observer now standing beside you. You have pledged to make amends. Will you swear to uphold these new measures, to work alongside this council, and to prove that redemption is stronger than any fear? His voice is steady as he replies, "I swear it by my name and by my family's honour." A murmur of approval ripples through the assembly. You feel the tension soften as hope seeps back into the villagers' eyes. Though bruised, their faith in one another begins to mend. You conclude, "Let today's betrayal be our teacher. Let our response be our testament." In this way, we turn a wound into a strength, a doubt into conviction,